Greetings, users and programs. This is Etari Living Sacrifice, and today we are going to talk about leveling up in life. A long time ago, I realized that we can learn a ton of life lessons from our everyday experiences like video games and movies and anime. Even though I was never as huge of a World of Warcraft player as a lot of my friends were, I did play the game enough to get to endgame and be able to experience a couple endgame raids and dungeons, and I drew a lot of life lessons from WoW and similar MMOs that I still use today when I am in need of some inspiration to get me to keep moving forward with my goals and dreams in life. A lot of people are playing World of Warcraft Vanilla right now, and I've been catching some buddies playing it on Twitch, and it reminded me of a lot of lessons I learned from playing WoW back in the day, and I thought I'd share some of those with you. So let's get into it. Lesson 1. You don't lose experience when you fail. Your armor and equipment might get a little busted up, and it might cost you some money, but that's it. You can always try again. Failure is a part of life. In fact, failure is one of the prices of success. Just like I've never met a person that has played WoW that has never messed up, never gotten in over their head, and died at least once, I've never met a hugely successful person in any endeavor that has never failed, never messed up, and attained perfection, much less been perfect from day one. Failure is part of the game. It's actually one of the main ways we as human beings learn new things. If you are anything like me, there have been times where I avoided going for it or avoided trying a new endeavor because I was afraid of failing. What exactly was I so afraid of? Disappointment? Shame? Embarrassment? What a lot of us really fear is failing to do something right the first time. How will we look to others? Having people laugh at me for failing or saying things like, "I knew that was a stupid idea." I learned early on, most people that would do something like that or say something like that are people that rarely try anything themselves. They stick with what they know, and they don't want you to succeed because that would take away their excuse for why they haven't tried to chase after that dream or that goal. I could get into a myriad of reasons why people are afraid of failure, but let's get into the reasons why we should try anyway, using World of Warcraft as the example. Again, you don't lose experience. The worst thing that can happen is you learn from that experience and use it on your next run. So what if people make fun of you? So what if it doesn't quite work out like we hoped? I would rather live with the pain of failure than the pain of regret. The regret of not knowing that if I had just tried, what could have happened? What if it had all worked out, or at least worked out to some degree? When we're playing games like World of Warcraft, sometimes things outside of our control just happen, and as gamers, we either make the decision to pick up from where we left off and keep moving forward, or quitting and going to another game. Don't get me wrong, it's not like just because we know this now that there aren't still times where the fear is going to win. It's something we have to continue to work on and get better at. I don't know if I'll ever completely get over my fear of failure, but what other choice do we have than to keep trying? Quitting? What else are we going to do with our time? We got to be doing something, even if it's nothing. So I have learned to just pay the price and get my armor and weapons fixed and take the lessons I learned into the next battle. Lesson 2. You can't get to max level just from killing level 1 boars. Maybe you are nervous about getting that promotion at work because it's unfamiliar territory. What if you mess up? What if you can't handle it? What if we just aren't ready for it? We're already pretty content with what we have, so why mess up a good thing? There was a hilarious episode of South Park where the boys spend weeks leveling up their characters by killing low-level boars over and over again. While I was watching that episode, I had to remember it's just a TV show, because us gamers, we all know that eventually you stop gaining experience from lower-level enemies. The parallel, or the parable here, is eventually you have to stop trying to gain experience from the stuff you've done so often, it's second nature. It's time to move on to the next level. You have learned everything you are going to from killing those low-level boars. It's time to tackle the next challenge. If we spend all our time doing things we're comfortable doing or already good at, we aren't growing or leveling up. At level 20, we can go back and spend as much time as we'd like killing level 1 boars, but what do we really gain from it? A few copper? Some materials that we have no use for at our level? If we want to grow, we need to tackle challenges around our level or slightly above. The bigger challenges offer the bigger rewards. As your level of experience increases, you will go back and be able to blow away those low-level challenges that used to give you such a hard time. Not only are you stronger now, you also have the experience of how to deal with it. People might even come to you and ask you how you overcame such and such obstacle, and you might look back at when you went through something similar and remember what it was like when you had no idea how to handle such things. The game doesn't get easier as you play it. It actually gets harder as you progress. Not only that, but it takes even more experience to hit the next level. Enemies have new tricks up their sleeve. In life, as you level up, new challenges await. If there was no challenge, then what would be the fun of playing? Lesson 3. Use the tools we have today. We'll find more tools along the way. When starting out in a game like WoW, what do we have? Basic level 1 stuff. The only thing it's good for is getting started. But what more do we need to get started but the stuff we need to get started? It's not going to take us to the end of the game, but if we get started and keep at it, eventually we will get the things we need to do bigger and better things. A lot of times when we're thinking about getting into a new endeavor, like streaming on Twitch or YouTube for example, we think, oh, once I can afford the best camera or the best computer or whatever it is we think we need before we get started, and because we don't have those things, we never actually get around to starting. Yes, it would be nice if we started the game out with epic level gear, but would we really know how to best use it? Part of playing a new game is learning how to use the basic tools we have at our disposal first, so that way we understand how to even use the more complicated stuff later. I remember when I first decided to start making videos like this and streaming, nothing was perfect. I didn't have a room to dedicate to my endeavor. I didn't have a fancy mic. All I had was the one on my headset. I didn't have a camera. All I had was an aging computer that didn't work as well as I wanted it to. Yes, all those things like a fancy mic would have been great to have when I first started out. But if I had have waited till I had all of those things, I might never have actually gotten started. And guess what? Eventually I got all of those things, and they haven't really increased my channel growth rate at all. So I wouldn't have been better off waiting to get those things I thought would make everything better. I was better off by just getting started in the first place, because I would have missed out on all the learning experiences that I received from taking it one step at a time. Lesson 4. Study and practice what you want to get good at. Remember the first time you played World of Warcraft? Let's think back on that time together. Everything was new and unfamiliar. We had no idea how things worked. Even what we might consider basic stuff today, like what the different colors of weapons were, like which color meant common, which color meant epic, which color meant rare. We either had to look it up or have someone else tell us what it meant. As time moved on, we learned all those basics and had fun while doing it. Then eventually, we started getting into harder zones, and maybe we hit a raid or a dungeon we couldn't figure out on our own. If we want to get good at a game, what do? We study it. We read guides. We learn from the pros to get tips and tricks. We Google articles. We watch videos. We pull up strategy guides and walkthroughs. Study what you want to be. If you want to be rich, study strategy guides on how to get rich. Study what rich people do. Read the books they have read and watch the videos and books on how they have done it themselves. If you want to learn how to play guitar, get guitar magazines and strategy guides. Most people go through life with their fingers crossed, hoping things just happen. You've got to be intentional about what you want. And this leads us into our next lesson. Lesson 5. Having quests and goals to shoot for make the game more fun and give the experience more meaning. What keeps you playing a game like WoW? Usually you have an objective you're shooting for. You want to get that epic mount, or you are grinding that dungeon for a particular piece of gear. As human beings, we need something to strive for. We need goals to attempt in the game of life, or we become uninterested and depressed. When I was young, my mom made me take piano lessons, but there weren't any songs that I wanted to learn on the piano at the time, so I didn't really have anything to strive for, and I quickly lost interest. Later in life, I wanted to learn to play guitar and drums because I thought it would be awesome to learn how to play that song I heard on the radio. I had something to strive for, and it was much more fun and easier to keep at it, and I actually got pretty decent after a time. If we create a quest log in real life and prioritize them in importance, we will have a much better chance of actually sticking to it. Lesson 6. If you want what they have, I have to do what they did to get it. When we are playing MMOs, a lot of times we see people with one of them epic mounts or that outfit that you can only get from doing some insanely hard dungeon or that tedious achievement, and it is awesome. We think, that's pretty cool, I want that. Maybe we get a little jealous and think, why not me? And then we ask, what did they do to get that? Why can't I do what they did to get what they got? That's how I feel in real life, and the fact is, you can. I see those guys with those epic mounts or those bad to the bone cars like Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and I think, why not me? I am just as smart and capable as those guys are, and the only way I'm going to get what they got is if I do what they did to get it. We are gonna need to do those extremely hard dungeons in real life and those tedious achievements to get it. Sometimes it might mean giving up on some of the other games we're playing in life so we can focus on this one particular goal. When I was first getting out of school and deciding what I wanted to do in life, I thought it might be pretty cool to get rich. The problem was I didn't know how. So to bring things back to lesson 4, study and practice what you want to get good at. Guess what? I did just that. I started reading books on the subject. One of the books called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki said if you want to get rich, it will be very helpful if you are good with people. Well, I was extremely shy and awkward. And then one day I realized that social skills are something the average person learns or has the ability to learn. And they aren't just born with those skills. Well, that same book suggested getting into sales if you want to improve your social skills, so I did just that. I was absolutely horrible at first, but I really wanted to learn how to have better relationships and how to talk to girls and get rich, so I decided to stick with it anyways. Eventually, after years of grinding for that experience, I achieved a certain level of mastery on that subject. I started making what I thought was really good money at the time, and then it was time for the next level dungeon. The next thing I had to learn was how to be a leader. So I got with a sales organization in the insurance industry, and the story goes on. Now I have a great social life. I travel the world and I buy my cars with cash. I'm not saying these things to brag, I'm saying them to add credibility to the lesson and give you an example of what the path might look like for you. I still have a lot to learn to hit my endgame goals, but I know all I have to do to eventually complete that quest is to continue to learn from the people that have those results that I am looking for. And this leads us to our last lesson for this video. Lesson 7. Don't ask a healer to do a warrior's job. Every role on the team is just as important as the others. Everyone has a role to play. In my journey, I've come across a lot of people that think they don't have anything to offer. They think this is because they aren't as good as someone else in a particular role. Many times it's because they aren't working from their strengths. They are trying to do a warrior's job and they are spec'd for healing. When playing games like WoW, in order to beat those high-level raids and dungeons, you generally need a full and fleshed out party. If you have all warriors or all healers, for example, the chances of you completing the quest are greatly diminished. It's generally a good idea to have at least one tank and one healer and a bunch of DPS, right? I don't care how much damage you can do with your hunter. If that big baddie hits you and you don't have a healer around and a tank to take the aggro off of you, you're gonna go down. A lot of people like to be the damage dealers because it looks good on paper. Healers are just as important as damage dealers, which are just as important as tanks. Work on your strengths. If you are in a role or on a team that's asking you to do a warrior's job, when you are better suited for healing, maybe ask to switch roles or find a team where you can work from your strengths. I also see a lot of teams in real life that consistently recruit people that are just like them. You know, let's say all warriors, for example. That's fine if you only want to have a small organization. But if you want to grow and expand, you're going to need to have a full party of team members to take on those roles where warriors aren't suited for the job. Being a healer doesn't make you less valuable than a warrior or vice versa. What team could survive without their healer? What team could survive without their tank? If there was no one doing damage, the fight would never end. I'm not saying you shouldn't work on your weaknesses. There might come a time when the hunter needs to tank for a minute while the warrior is being revived, so you should try to become more competent in those areas. Just don't feel like you have to be an expert at all roles at the same time all the time. That's literally impossible. If this video helps one fellow gamer adapt their way of thinking and grow into the type of person they have always dreamed of becoming, then my time has been well spent. If this video has helped you in any way, then help your fellow gamers out and share it with them. Remember to give the video a big thumbs up on that like button and subscribe, and until next time, remember to keep moving forward!
If you wanna know the God's honest truth, the key to